We are doing Megillas Esther. So if you notice, Reb Avram Chaim over here asked the Manishtana. We're not holding by Manishtana, but we are holding by Mishanichnas Adar Marbin B'Simcha. So a good Chodesh to everybody. And if you turn to your Zera Shimshon Volume 2, Tav Kuf Chav Tes, which is Megillas Esther, letter Yud Gimel, and I do want to give a big shout out to Rabbi Menachem, who helped sponsor this, one of our attendees of the Shir. This is the Zera Shimshon Mavura Megillas Esther. So I think you could sit there, or you sit in your regular spot. Tonight, Zera Shimshon is sponsored Le'ila Nishmas, Rabbi Yosef ben Mendel, the father of Hillel Binder, and Gila Bat Nisim, the mother of Mrs. Bishko, whose yard site is Hayom Ba'erev. That's right. So, wow, we have an opportunity to learn Le'ila Nishmas Me'bala up the Neshumas. Okay, Marav Rabbi site. Page Tov Kuv Chav Tes. You're in volume 2. We are doing a special Rosh Chodesh Megillas Esther. I'm sorry I didn't give you the heads up, Rabbi Zimmer. And so, but you can find one over here. Let's go. Lamer Lernen. Al Kein HaYehudim HaProzim HaYa'osim. They made Simcha Umishta. And Mordechai requested Simcha, Mishta, V'Yomtiv. And says the Zera Shimshon, a quote from the Gemara Megillah, Simcha u'Mishta kiblu, Yomtiv loy kiblu ulayhu. Mama Masberzan, let me give you a little bit of background. Mazel Tov. Yingel or Dar Meidl? Was sagst du? Okay. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. Mazel Tov. Klal Yisrael, after the grace of Simcha, the victory over Haman, and over all the Tzorah Yehudim, Mordechai and Esther requested that Purim become a Yom Tiv. A Yom Tiv with Isser Malacha. It says they wanted Simcha u'Mishta v'Yom Tiv. Mamish like a Yom Tiv. And Klal Yisrael was not ready for it. The Tzibur was not ready for it. If there was going to be a Isser Malacha, it was going to be Kol Mokim u'Mokim Lefi Minhagim. It would be Minig HaMokim. As it is, Taka, in certain places, there's a minig HaMokim not to work. You don't open up your store, Megait Nisht Arbet, you don't go to work, but it's not an Isser like a Yom Tiv. It's all minig. But that's not what Mordechai wanted. Mordechai, who at that time was the Gadol Adar, the leader, is one of the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, he requested, and it's fascinating because it says so in the Megillah. The discrepancy between what Mordechai had requested and what actually happened is mentioned in the Megillah. So none of these cover-ups, like we don't tell you, nay, that it was full disclosure. Mordechai wanted a Yom Tiv. Mordechai felt that Purim should become a Yom Tiv. Derech Agav, I'd like to put something out there for the Olam. The name Yom Tiv never existed until that time. In the Torah Kedosha, what are the holidays known as? Regalim, Moadim, and Chagim. Right? The name Yom Tiv had never existed until now. Simcha zu Yom Tiv. Me'eva li Yom Tiv. With the help of the Rabbi Chaim Kanievski Hashem Yisbarach, for this year's Sukkot, the next Divrei Simcha is coming out. besides from my Haggadah Shel Pesach, so I have a section, an appendix, about 10 pages, discussing why the name Yom Tif was founded with Purim. That's a sugya b'fnei atzmai. What happened at the name Yom Tif? It's a little plug. We'll plug it again, Best Hashem, closer to that Yom Tif. But the name Yom Tif was nischadish on Purim. At this Yom, and they wanted to make it, meaning Purim, Pesach, Shavuos, Yom Tov was adopted at this time. Because you don't find the name Adrabah, Meir, Tagidli, Me'efo motzim et Hashem Yom Tov lifnei Purim. Tamid, it's either Moed, Chagim, Regolim. Mazer? Atzeret. אבל זה לא שם כללי, right? של מועדים לשמחה, חגים, right? רגולים. Aber Yom Tov ist angefangen mit Purim. It started over here, and there's a very good reason why. Al Koponim, in the description of Yom Tov, Mordechai wanted Yom Tov pshutay kemashmoi, and the Jews pushed back. The Zera Shimshon has a bunch of questions. Number one, yesh ledaktik. Why did they push back? If Mordechai, the Gadol HaTorah, Gewalt, Mordechai wanted, Mordechai had saved them, Mordechai was the catalyst, why did they push back? During those times, Tainis Zera Shimshon, there were Yomim Tovim. There were all of those special days that happened in Klal Yisrael, which the Zera Shimshon's mashra, they made them Osur L'Malacha. The Lama Mordechai ve'Esther lo hichrichu liYisrael al zeh. Wow. And why did they not force Klal Yisrael? Why didn't they push the agenda? Why did they pull back and not force the agenda? Those are my kashas, asks the Zera Shimshon. Those are the kashas. What's the sugya of Yom Tov? Why did Mordechai and Esther want it? Why did Klal Yisrael not want it? And why weren't Mordechai and Esther more adamant that they accepted upon themselves? It's a fascinating sugya, both b'Kabbalah and in halacha. Let's see the Zera Shimshon. Like all good sugyas, let's answer this mitanocha kasha. Let's go through another part of the sugya. We'll understand that, says the Zera Shimshon, and we'll understand the ganza maisa. Like this. Behektem kushya acheres. In the beginning of the Megillah, Vashti gets killed, and a decree goes out. What did Vashti do? She didn't show up. She disgraced the king. Achashverosh had called for her. She said, Loi mitan aleph. I'm not going. A bizoyin to the melech. Nu. From them. And she got killed. And they made a gezerah. V'chol hanoshim yitnu yikor lebaleim. I want to ask a question, says the Zera Shimshon. You know, you can have extremes. You've got giving kavod, disgracing, and in the middle, meaning nish mechabed zayin und and not nish zu verschwächen, and not to embarrass. Fleischig, milchig, parv, right? It don't have to be. What happened here? Sfreik the Zera Shimshon. Sharei im lo yoya oisim din bevashti. If they wouldn't make a din, if they wouldn't have gone ahead and punished Vashti, we would have taken Vashti as a precedent that, look, she's not listening to the husband and she's mavaza, other women will also be mavaza. People are going to hear she stood up to her husband, and women will stand up to their husband.
This was the Persian saying this.
That was the Persians. What it says, Ba'amram, Va'ato yasu din bevashti, till madna noshim lasu tzivu baleim. So you know what will happen? Women will listen to their husbands. That's what they wanted to accomplish. But that's not what the Gezerah was, says the Zera Shimshon. The Gezerah wasn't that you should just listen. The Gezerah was you have to honor him. Yiten yikar lebalem. It's sort of like the pendulum turned all the way to the other side. Asks the Zera Shimshon, Ma lanu lahoisef sheyitnu yikar im eina nilmet klal bevashti. The giving kavod, what the decree actually said, doesn't seem to be in accordance to the mistake that happened. If the mistake, so to speak, was that Vashti was disobedient and was mevazer her husband, if that's what it was, so then the Gezerah would be, this is what happens when you do that, and you better not be that way. But to bring the pendulum over to the other direction, and now saying, therefore we have to give cover to them, tafasta maruba loy tafasta, which means in English, when you grab a little bit, you have what you have. When you try for too much, you're left with nothing. That's the Zera Shimshon's question. Why was the Gezerah to such an extreme? Based on what they considered, whoever said it was the Persians, okay, based on their consideration that this was an embarrassment. So don't embarrass your husband. That should be l'chayra the Gezerah. Don't embarrass. But why to the other direction? Comes the Zera Shimshon with a gewaltige Wort. I'm going to explain to you, says the Zera Shimshon, how the evil of Esav works, and how Esav, Haman, and Esav, and all the koyches hara work in this world. And let me explain, because the koyach hara of Haman comes from Esav, originally from the Eitz Hadas, from that source. About that we're going to talk about in Maharal Shir tonight. But the koyach of Haman that he's going to talk about is the Esav Dika koyach. Let's see. Ubekesav Nevchar, one of the big Mekubalim beParshas Bereishis Tama al Oisei Roshan Haman. Ma'ashekosov Chachmei o Emesh shenislabesh boi samach mem ba'atzmoi. Haman became possessed with the power of evil, the Samach Mem himself. What you would call the Hitler of our previous generation, the Haman was indeed, he was a Hitler, and he was the essence of bad. But at the other hand, if he has such koyach, he's a little bit foolish. Why? Didn't he know that Klal Yisrael could do tshuva? V'yesh b'toichem chasidim. There are heilige mention, Prifrat, Mordechai, V'asoch. By the way, if you didn't miss that, the Zera Shimshon called Mordechai a chassid. I don't know if it means he had a streimel. I don't know what. It says it right there, okay? For all of those who wanted to know, he called Mordechai, and Asoch was Daniel. I don't know about that. But he calls him a chassid. What's that? V'yesh b'soichem chasidim ubefrat Mordechai v'asoch. It is other Marvin b'simcha. V'talmidav sheyasu tefila v'tshuva levatal ha'gezerah. Didn't Haman know that Klal Yisrael was full of good people? They're going to band together. The lama hoitzi ba'adam ases lafim kikar kesef, and you spent all this money. Come on, Haman, you've been around the block. You know what's going on. You know the koyach of tshuva. What are you thinking? Elam, the Teretz says, listen to this word, and this is the key. Elam bezeh taharosha. His opinion was ikar tshuva is vidui, and if you're not mefaret all of your sins, tshuva doesn't work. You know the way the minig is, we say Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, and then we have on our Yom Kippur pamphlets or in the art scrolls, you've got Ashamnu, Achalti B'lai Bracha, Achalti, right, without, and we go through Pirtei Pratim. the chidah and different mahalchim of how to say this and this and this, and you go through lists of kemat over 100 different things that you did wrong. You know why? There's a shlita that holds if you don't speak out every aveira, your vidui doesn't help. That's what Haman's opinion was. Beli lefaret et kol ha'chisronot and all of the aveiras. Now, if that's true, Haman, the diabolical Haman, said, I got him. Because they'll never remember everything. And they won't be able to do a good tshuva. Says the Zera Shimshon, let's see it inside. Elevada bezeh Torah Rosha. She'ikra tshuva hu vidui. V'choshav she'ev sham yisor losha b'tshuva karoi. They won't be able to do a full tshuva. You know why? Sharei tzorech lizkar kol ha'avonos. You got to remember all the sins. V'yev sheshiyizkar kulam. You can't remember all of them. V'lo'olam lo'tiyah teshuvosam. Gimura. Therefore, b'shvil zeh lo'tiyah mekubelas ad kan l'shayne b'kitzer. So he's quoting this opinion that says that the confidence that Haman has is because he's coming from an opinion that says tshuva doesn't work unless you explain everything. And let's go weiter. Ube'emes shavi pirish zeh osi shaper haliteini no min ha'adoim hazeh. You ready? For all you people who like Kabbalah. Haliteini no min ha'adoim. Lama haliteini. Why pour it down? Why not eat it via mensch? Like Esav Chazal say, he opened up his mouth and just pour it down. V'loi omer ha'achileni. Lama? The deal was, Esav says, you take olam haba, I get olam hazeh. Correct? You get olam haba, I'm getting olam hazeh. But when a Jew makes a mistake and he loses his olam haba, what happens? He gets his olam haba in this world, and then it goes to Esav. Let's say that again. When a Jew does good things, he gets olam haba. What happens if he's a Rasha, chas v'shalom, he makes mistakes? So then the Eibishter pays the Rasha his olam haba in this world. If it's in this world, you know who gets it? Esav. So Esav has an agenda. The Yetzer Hara and the Koiches Harav have an agenda. Get us Jewish people, us good Jewish people, to make mistakes. So whatever good that we have, we'll get in this world. If we get in this world, it's going to come to him. And look at what he says. V'av kish Yisrael chaytim, noitim chelkom shel olam haba, ba'olam hazeh. Real lamdish Zera Shimshon. So what's going to happen is the olam haba is going to come in olam hazeh. And who's going to get it? Then Esav is going to get it because he gets olam hazeh. I can't get your olam haba, but if your olam haba is happening in olam hazeh, then I can get it. We have very good Jews out there who do a lot of good stuff. And then sometimes, unfortunately, people mess up a little bit, correct? Esav's taina is that since you can't do tshuva, I want to swallow up those mistakes. You shouldn't even recognize them. So you can't do tshuva on them. If you can't do tshuva on them, they come to me. Look at what he says. Shaharei kish Yisrael choitim chas v'sholem moitzi shefa kadosh liklipos. The good influence that comes down to this world gets veered into the other side. Umiyara klipa memar levloya isachet hanikra edoim. Then it goes to that side which is known as Edom. Forget about the Aveira. He swallows it up. He doesn't even chew it. He just swallows it. If he waits and chews, he's going to remember and he's going to have charata. Next column. Haliteini no min hey nun mem haliteini no min Haman. Haliteini no min. Look inside, right over here. Roshei Teves, mamish, Roshei Teves, haliteni no min, hem oisios Haman. Haman's eitzah is we swallow up a Jew sins, and the Jew then forgets about the sin, never does tshuva properly. The sin impedes the entire tshuva process. This way, the Jewish people will try to do tshuva, but their tshuva will be ineffective. This is the koiches hara. In midas hadin, you have to give accountability for everything you did wrong. We know that there is one person in Klal Yisrael who was able to stand up against the Satan, and the Satan couldn't prove one thing wrong. Who was that? Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu, it says, Vaya'avik ish imay vayar ki lo yuchaloi. Lo yuchaloi means there was nothing wrong with Yaakov Avinu. That's why the Yaakov Avinu was overpowered, like we've said many times. Yaakov overpowered the Satan. The name Yisrael. So there is a koyach in Klal Yisrael to overpower this Satan. Seliktin Yaakov Avinu, and it's also in the children of Rachel. And as we'll soon see, Mordechai, coming from the children of Rachel, was able to access that koyach. Meaning, the kinderlach of Rachel are known as tzaddikim. Yosef at tzaddik and Binyamin at tzaddik. That's a koyach in Klal Yisrael that is perfect. It's a koyach in Klal Yisrael that is pristine. But Haman thought that he could have them. Haman thought that he could swallow them up by having them doing averis and them not realizing haliteni no min. He swallowed up. Come, you can look with me. And this way, ubezeh nama yisparish aposik hatzileni no miyad. Who's talking? Yaakov Avinu. Hatzileni hey no nun mem miyad Haman. Hatzileni no miyad ochi miyad Esav. Zog the Zera Shimshon. The Mawa kefa miyad ochi miyad Esav. V'tirtzu. Shteten zoyer. The betzvil tzorich levarer hashela. You have to speak things out. The kosher lekamapam espalim b'derech klal v'loy birur. Rak on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, like we said, Ashamnu baganu we're mefaret. You have to be mevarer. You have to ask. Avolatam she'fisha Esav veHaman hakol echad v'yeshlem svara. Esav and Haman are on the same page. Esav and Haman. What do we say in the end of when we finished reading the Megillah and we sang before the song of Shoshanas Yaakov? We say, Asher Heini, Oire Sinas Achim Lebanim. He awakens the hatred of the Achim. Which Achim do you think he's referring to? Halacha Esav Soines Yaakov. Esav hates. He's ma'oyer sinas achim lebanim. Esav's hatred. Halacha Esav soin leYaakov. Haman is there to be ma'oyer that hatred. Whatever Esav and Haman's power is in Esav's tuma. That's what the Zera Shimshon is being mechadish to us. Hatzileni no miyad Haman, or like we said, haliteni no min Haman. 2 times in Yaakov and Esav's conversations is Haman merumas. Says the Zera Shimshon, Avolatam lefisha Esav v'Haman hakol echad v'yeshem tzvara shetzorich leizvadais v'la'achoyte al kol achatoim. Maybe Rabbi say Esav was able to fool his father Yitzchak, who was known as the Kav of Din and Gevura, because Eich ma'aisrim es hamelach Eich ma'asrim es hatvua, or even the teven, what comes off of it, right? Because Esav was appealing to Yitzchak that you have to be medaktik, exactly the midas hadin on every single prat. And Yitzchak was also a ois ga'arbit. Yitzchak was taka midas hadin 100% ois ga'arbit. Memela, shamina minash tzorech ledaitam birur dvarim. Umeshum hachi. And therefore, when Yaakov davened, he taka said, "Natzileni no miyad ochem miyad Esav berosha tevis Haman kedei loidia lanu tama kefil." He mentioned that over there to let you know Yaakov Avinu understood it. The svarash zu shel Haman. This is actually a machlekes in the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beser and Rabbi Akiva. Does a person have to speak out all of his sins? Or is it good enough that he says roiv of the sins? Truth is, state by Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, the svirulate the tzarech lefaret achet. Rabbi Akiva tzarech, you don't have to. You can talk more. Ashamnu, bagadnu, gazalnu, all of that, right? Your atznura, it's good enough. You don't have to go into more pratim. That's good enough. This, says the Zera Shimshon, was Haman's idea of how he can get Klal Yisrael. And now let's go back and answer some questions. And this is what Klal Yisrael fought against. And let's answer all of our questions. We'll go back to his pshat. Actually, ma'ata noven ledina din shel Vashti. Let's talk about Vashti. Question he asked: why did Haman make a decree, shekol hanoshim yitnu yikor lebaleim? Why didn't he just give a decree that they shouldn't be mevaza? What did Vashti do? She was mevaza. The teretz is, do you know how Vashti died? One strike and you're out. Haman's way of life. V'ma'ata nova l'nidan din shel Vashti. Why was he the only person who came up with this idea? Says the Zera Shimshon, nobody else felt that Vashti should get killed. No one else felt that even though she didn't come to the king and didn't fulfill his request, so she made a mistake. Didn't she do many good things in her life? It's not one strike and you're out. The Dover Koshu Leimer, Shebishvil, I'm on page Tov Kuf Lamed Aleph, Shebishvil Pam Achas, one time, Sha'isha Eina Oisa Rotzen Bala, Miyad Tiye Chayoves, Misa, Haman. You're killing her on one mistake. Are you out of your mind? Afapi shekol yameha shama lebala b'chol ma she'omar lo. So she made a mistake. But this is Haman. This is Haman. He's the Kayach Hara. This is Haman. Therefore, they didn't want to kill her. All they were good about was Ksivas Haigeris, but not Misas Vashti, says the Zera Shimshon. Zog the Zera Shimshon, they didn't agree with it, but Haman pushed it through. And Haman convinced Achashverosh, you got to kill her. One strike and you're out. It doesn't say the Misa in the thing. They didn't agree. Haman, shehu asamach mem, v'yesh le'svar shafil avoin echad u'nishkach ma'akev atshuva, mishum dechayshin and le'meutai. Haman was the one who pushed it through. What's going to be? You're going to kill a woman on one mistake? So this is the gezerah that's going to come out in Persia? How's a woman ever going to survive? So Haman said, I have an eitzah. They're going to start being mechabed their husbands. They're going to not just be parva. They're going to go to the other direction. They're going to start doing everything. In the middle, they'll never make a mistake. If they're in the mode of being mechabed, their husbands will pick the women up to such a madrega they'll never make a mistake. This is Haman's thinking, says the Zera Shimshon. This is Haman's thinking. Let's see it inside. Then she's going to be mechuyev misa. V'zeh lo nimna min anoshev v'lo yitena chaytoas afilu pam echas balein v'lo shavkas chay l'noshim. How are women going to live? The teretz is lechein nischachem Haman the kol anoshim yitna kar dahainu shetier regilas. They'll generally get used to being honorable. That's what the decree said. By being honorable, therefore yichashuvim beineim ka'adam gadol v'sar. And therefore, they'll always listen. They'll be shoymen like. Masha'ein kein im yiyu baleim chashuvim v'neim kemoisam. Ezapam like tishma like. If the husbands are equal, then they're going to put him down. This way, we'll put our husbands up on a pedestal. This was Haman's fadreita maisa. Bekitzur, Haman, says the Zera Shimshon, has one approach. And his approach is that if you make a mistake, one slip and you're gone. Midas adin lemeloyoi. You know what Mordechai did? You know what Mordechai and Esther did? They said, and this is the Nakuda, Haman, we're going to beat you at your game. We're going to get Lech kenois kol haYehudim v'tzamu alai shloisha yomim laila v'yom. 100% of all the Jews are, because of your decree, and you were successful in getting a decree out that all of Yidden, everybody's going to be wiped out. Nar v'zok, there's nobody who's going to be saved. It was the perfect scenario for every single Jew. Men and women and even children, to much as they could, fasted and fasted and fasted. You know how long? 3 days. Yoimam v'layla. In Chazal it says fasting 3 days, Yom V'layla, is like 40 days of Tanesim. It's like 40 Tanesim. And with that, the decree was gone. What Haman said, that you'll never be able to get 100% complacent, to be compliant, he was wrong. 100% compliant. And that's why Mordechai wanted to make it a Yom Tov. He wanted to beat him as his game and show you now everybody's going to have a Yom Tov. It's not going to be a minik. It's going to be Yom Tov. It's going to be a Heilige Tug. Let's see it inside in the Zera Shimshon. V'hoyu, we're getting to the end. V'hoyu v'svaros Haman hoyser shafilu, on page Tavkov Lamed Beis, are the last two paragraphs. V'hoyu shesvaros Haman hoyser shafilu b'shul chet achar shelo yizvad olav ein shum mekabeles. Because Haman said, even one mistake that isn't reckoned, you get wiped out. The tshuva is not helpful. Lekach nischachma Esther l'shloach leMordechai lech kenoises kol haYehuda nimtzim b'Shushan. Lefi shenenu kulam min asuda, v'lefi svaras hamanim echad mehem ne'edar melasas tshuva loizim esvatelas like Zera. According to Shitas Haman, if one person was missing, they wouldn't be able to do tshuva. Correct? We weren't missing one person. Every single Jew, and every single Jew in Shushan, whoever was guilty, came forward and was in it. There was such an achdus in Klal Yisrael, the Gezerah became batal. Lech knois kol haYehudim. We're learning in Masechtas Brachas, in our Kailul Berger, in our Shir. The name of a shul is called a Beis HaKnesses, because the Iker Koyach of coming to daven together is the gathering. We're knois, mekum tzazamen. Yidden are coming together for one purpose, to daven, to close the Eibusha. We're doing it ba'achdus, beroiv am hadras melech. That's our power. Umeshum hachi lachar shenasa manes gozu lases ois yom kemo yom tiv. They wanted full compliance. Let's beat him at his game. He says that we're mefuzzer mefayred. He says that the Lashon Hara, we can't be unified. So nicht richtig. Shoyekula yomtiv gomor lechol Yisrael. V'lo yetoli b'minig hamakayimos. They didn't want minig hamakam business. They wanted 100% God. Because you know why? L'ramez l'svaris haman. Shebishon Mordechai rotza la'abris kol ha'Yehudim nahapachu l'simcha v'sasan. You're saying it's my fault that I went and stood up against you. I turned everybody against you. Kenois Kalim and Esther and Mordechai did it together. We beat you at your game. You think that we can go ahead and forget about our sins? We did 100% tshuva. And not only that, they accepted the Torah like they never did before. So what happened? Asks Eliezer. Klal Yisrael said, but do you really have to hold yourself on such a high standard? I know, Mordechai, you're one of the children of Rachel. And Rachel's children are tzaddikim. And tzaddikim, Yosef HaTzadik, Binyamin HaTzadik. But Klal Yisrael is comprised mostly of the children of Leah. And Leah's children are Baalei Tshuva, like Yehuda, like Ruvain, like David HaMelech. So you can do kapara on roiv of the Averis, and it's also good enough. Therefore, they pushed back. They weren't ready to accept upon themselves such a big Yom Tov. They felt at one time in history was enough to be mevatel the Gezerah, but going forward we can commemorate the Yom Tov with roiv tshuva. ואין רוצים בספרה זו, לפי שהאוילם נידן בסרויבוי, והיוחד אחרויב מייסב, והתשובה מקבלת על כל הבנויסב, אף אם ישכו איזה מהם. The Eibishter is git. Hashem is good, and you don't have to do and remember, just do tshuva. Whatever you remember, you're misvada, and you can say, whatever I don't remember, Eibishter, you know, and I have charata, I'm sorry, I'm just a basar v'dam, and that's good enough. And that's the way they wanted to paskin. They wanted to go basar, and Mordechai at the end didn't want to push it. He didn't want to push it. He knew for his standards, he said, I was ready to go and make a Yom Tov out of this. But Klal Yisrael's not masking, I'm not going to push the agenda. But that says the Zera Shimshon, Lefi Shita says Zera Shimshon, that's the Yesod. And the Yesod for us is, Be'ezus Hashem, we will be Zoicha to a Geula Shalema B'Karev. But it requires us to be unified, to be on the same page, to be respectful. Shekol Yehudi Yiten Yakar LiYehudi. Should give respect to other Yidden no matter what. With that, Be'ezus Hashem Yisrael, Zoicha Zayin Taka Kulanu to the Bias Goyel Tzedek B'Meher B'Yameinu.